Hi there, He from QLC here. Welcome back. Thanks for watching the video. Forgive the lack of content over the last few days. I've been busy researching in depth for the next few videos that I'll be doing, and since the topics that I'll be doing the videos on are a bit more complex than me just ranting about something, that's why I've been away, trying to get things right. That's why. This is going to be a short video about the right to free speech and the ramifications of censoring people. Obviously, everybody and their mothers heard about Donald Trump being banned from Twitter and Instagram and Facebook because of what happened with the Capitol Hill protest, riots, whatever you want to call them. People talked about how it was so easy for these people to, break into Capitol Hill as opposed to the Black Lives Matter protests having to do with so many security guards. But the Capitol Hill people, supposedly the police let them in, supposedly. People were making those comparisons and people were blaming Trump, even though Trump went on camera saying, hey, guys, I understand that you're hurt, but you need to go home. This isn't the right thing to do. But despite this, they were blaming Trump, so the man got impeached. He's the only president ever to be impeached twice. And and even when Biden becomes the president of the United States of America tomorrow, they're still going to be impeaching, like they're still going to be going through the process of properly impeaching Trump while he's no longer the president. It's amazing. It's whether you like Trump or whether you hate Trump, it's amazing that they managed to do that. The man was president for one more week, but they managed to, file for an impeachment. All right, fine, whatever. They blamed him for the riots and they banned him from Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Here's the problem with that. This is something that I've been arguing with people on my Facebook about, and they don't seem to understand. They think that I'm some fool who doesn't know anything about freedom of speech. I get that companies like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, they got their own rules and regulations, terms and conditions. Yes, legally, technically, they can do what they like. They can have people be on their platform. They can have people not be on their platform. They can ban people. It's their website. It's their business. Fine. That I'm willing to agree with. That I'm willing to accept. It's their business. They can do what they like. But what are the rules? Because in the past, we've all been, complaining about Twitter and YouTube allowing ISIS videos up there. Like, there are leftist extremists and alt-right extremists on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook talking absolute nonsense, inciting violence all the time. I'm not going to give any specific examples. I don't think I need to. Like, most of us can, look this stuff up and you'll see that I'm right. But these people are not being taken down, at least not all of them. There are right-wing, conservative entities, channels, organizations like PragerU, Roaming Millennial that have had to deal with issues with Patreon and YouTube, like demonetization, shadow banning, stuff like that. PragerU having a bunch of videos taken down on their YouTube channel just because they don't always get it right with the wording of their videos. Sometimes they're spot on, sometimes they're not spot on. But PragerU's having to deal with it. A lot of these videos, a lot of these channels that talk about picking up women, talking to women, sleeping with beautiful women, female nature, hypergamy, red pill knowledge, MGTOW knowledge, MGTOW meaning men going their own way, no marriage, no kids, no reliance on a woman. Influencers on YouTube that talk about that stuff, they've been shadow banned, they've been demonetized, they've had their videos taken down, they've had threats from people in the comments. Is that right? No, because there are channels made by women, influencers that are women talking smack about men and how men need to keep in line and how men ain't men anymore and how men are too cheap and men are too boyish and immature. Those videos don't get taken down, at least not to my knowledge. I could be wrong, but to my knowledge, they're not taken down. It's the ones where they talk about, not getting tricked by women. Those are the ones that have to do with nonsense. Luckily, I've done a few videos like that, and the mine haven't been taken down, but that's because I've got like 20 subscribers, or like roughly. So no one, like, YouTube barely know that I exist. Speaking of which, like my stuff, comment on below whether you like my videos or not, subscribe, share the video, you know what to do. But back to the video. Free speech is a big flipping deal. It's a big flipping deal because you have to understand there's the First Amendment thing in America, but all around the world, it's supposed to be a basic human right. Obviously, in certain parts of the world, human rights are not taken as seriously as the West, but at least in the West, the freedom to, speak your mind, it is a pretty big deal. And if you're out here censoring people, where does it stop? Because I understand that Trump is not the nicest person in the world. He's not the most politically correct. He said a bunch of things that people think are dumb. Sure, whatever. He's a rich, white billionaire who is still the president for another 12 hours, depending on time zones. He's gonna be fine. But what about if Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all these other platforms, partly because of SJWs and keyboard warriors, and partly because they get a bit too big for their bridges, what if they decide to censor anybody they like? Which technically they can, because private companies, they got their own rules and regulations, terms and conditions. What happens? What happens when they decide to censor you if you say something bad? There are people on my Facebook friends list that have been removed from Facebook for like 24 hours for an inappropriate post or an inappropriate picture. I've seen that. Again, I'm not going to name names. I say again, I'm not sure if I said it before. But I'm not going to name names because it's pointless. But like everyday people can get censored and removed and shadow banned and demonetized on all these different platforms, not just politicians. So if you're championing the infringement of the rights to speak your mind on platforms, the rights of people like Donald Trump, because he's rich, he's got all that so-called privilege, he's the president for another day, then for goodness sake, don't you realize that this is just the beginning? I mean, I say that like it hasn't been happening before, but this is just the beginning. It can happen to you, it can happen to me. Now I'm seeing on this Aberrant Preach video, they were looking at a CNN report, all these men talking about how YouTube influencers are getting too big for their bridges and how, they should be removed and censored and cancelled because they're getting too influential. So basically, a little bit of context here, you have to understand that mainstream media, TV, film, all these industries, they're getting very, very scared of free content platforms such as YouTube, because you've got people like Logan Paul or KSI or PewDiePie or Mr. Beast making millions of pounds, dollars, whatever, every single year from producing content that people love. Ordinary people like you or me making millions from honing in their talents, showing people their talents, making people laugh, making people smile, and they make money. I'll give some other examples. Lily Singh, who else? Just different people like Anna Arcana. I wanted to mention some women as well. A bunch of different people that make money off creating content every week or every day. Now, the mainstream media people, they don't like that. TV people, they don't like that. Film people, they don't like that, because these people make money off attention. If people are putting more attention into YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and content creators there, and less time on watching the news or watching silly TV shows, then that means more money is going to go towards the free content platforms and all those influencers on them platforms, but not on the mainstream media and the TV and film. So now CNN are talking smack about YouTube content creators, saying, oh, they're getting too big, they're too influential, we need to silence them if they say the wrong things. And they're pretending that it's some sort of moral issue. I haven't watched the whole Aberrant Preach thing. I just saw a little bit of it and I decided to make this video, partly because these thoughts have been bubbling in my mind about the importance of free speech and the ramifications of censorship, and partly because I hadn't put up the video in a few days and you guys deserve some content. But what's more important is the ramifications are the ramifications of censorship. They're bigger than even I can comprehend. But the summary is, I feel that we shouldn't be out here being quick to be happy for other people's right to speak on a platform being removed because they said something offensive or because they inadvertently inspired people to do terrible things that those people did not want them to do. I'm sure Donald Trump did not want people to storm Capitol Hill a week before he's decided to leave think about it, because Donald Trump, he said some dumb stuff, but he's not a dumb person. Like, this is somebody that went to Wharton Business School. He's a billionaire in terms of net worth. He's not an idiot. It's not really. Think about it. Why? He knows that the second he's no longer president, people are going to try and put him in jail for one thing or the other. Him and his relatives, his kids. He knows that. Why on earth would he want his own supporters, his own extended political family, to go storming Capitol Hill? Something that ain't happened since 1812, supposedly. The week before he's meant to leave the White House. Why would he do that? Why would he want that? No one would want that. You can talk to me about what he said on Twitter, but that's not what he wants. And then for him to lose his voice on Twitter, his favorite platform. Come on, man. Him being impeached. The only president to be impeached. Twice. Not once, twice. Why would he want that? That's not what he wanted. That's what the liberals want. That's what the leftists want. That's what Biden wants. That's what Nancy Pelosi wants. That's what the Democrats want. And they were all, exaggerating. You had Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez talking about, oh, I was in the building that day. I wasn't sure if I was going to make it out alive. Boo-hoo. What rubbish. She was going to be fine. There was security there. There were other people there in the room with her. Please. The people there protesting, they weren't trying to kill anybody. They were just trying to storm, take shit, break shit. Yep, I'm swearing. If this video was even going to get monetized, it's going to get demonetized now because I can't be bothered to edit. Break stuff, take stuff, take selfies. These idiots were taking selfies with the police officers. Allow it. The police officers or security, whoever the hell let them in, because I'm sorry, if they were trying to stop people from getting in, how are they going to take selfies with the protesters? Think about it, people. Think about it. Because there's a little conspiracy theorist inside of me. I don't want to say that it was planned. I don't want to say that it was staged, but come on. I personally feel like all those people that entered Capitol Hill, it wouldn't have been so many people if the police didn't let it happen. Honestly, they were taking selfies with the people. Imagine if it was Black Lives Matter supporters or Antifa supporters saying the same stuff, saying F you America or whatever, or saying USA, and then trying to break into Capitol Hill. Would they be taking selfies? I do not think so. Hell, who knows? But that doesn't mean that Trump should be removed from Twitter. And I'm not saying this because I love Trump or that I'm obsessed with Trump. Of course not. I'm saying it because if they're going to do it to him, Mr. Richman, Mr. Billionaire, Mr. President, they can do it to anybody. They can decide to shadow ban or wipe out half of YouTube if they wanted. And you know that the rules and regulations don't count for everybody. We've seen medium tier and low tier YouTubers being removed, their videos removed, shadow banned, demonetized, whatever. But you've seen the likes of Logan Paul get away with his suicide forest thing. He had to take down the video himself, not YouTube. And then when he did his apology video, YouTube wants to make money off that and put it in everybody's recommended. And then they gave him free YouTube Red shows. He came back. He boosted his career with his podcast and what else? Him fighting KSI twice and all that stuff. Like, now Logan's bigger and badder than ever. I say badder in a good way, as he's bigger than ever. I'm not dissing Logan. I'm just saying it for what it is. There are people who have been demonetized and removed from YouTube for far less. In fact, because of all this censoring SJW nonsense, there's even people like Jenna Marbles, there's even people canceling themselves. And then we've all heard of Shane Dawson, Jeffree Star, all those people that have been accused of one thing or another. That's a different thing entirely. But there are also many good people that have been, punished by YouTube because somehow they've breached YouTube's terms and conditions, which, by the way, keep changing all the time. Remember, I did that little video about how people like me, um, YouTube could be making money on my videos, putting ads on my videos, and I wouldn't even get paid for it. I don't have the 1,000 subscribers. I don't have the watch time hours. They could put ads on my videos or other people's videos that don't have the watch time or the subscribers, and they can make money of it, but I don't. YouTube keep changing the rules. So unless you have to look at the terms and conditions and the content creator rules, you're not going to be always up to date with what you have to do to keep to the rules that they keep changing. Because again, it isn't my platform. I don't own YouTube. They own YouTube. The people that run YouTube, they run it. They can change the rules. So people going around saying, well, you have to abide by the rules. It's kind of hard if they keep changing. I hope I haven't made my points. Because it actually does bother me. It bothers me because the same mainstream media channels that talk about how YouTube influencers are getting too big, too influential, if they say the wrong thing, they need to be censored. The same people that talk about Trump being a loose cannon, he needs to be censored. These are the same people that they've been lying to us for years. They've been peddling their BS. I remember one time CNN, for those of you that are not pro-Israel, I remember when CNN talked about this guy, this leader, forgot his name, Perez, this leader that helped create the nation of Israel. They talked about him like he was a hero of peace. They forgot the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Palestinians that were killed, tortured, imprisoned, and displaced and made refugees because of because of the wars and the battles that were created because of people, including him, people like him, trying to build Israel from the rubble of the land of the Palestinians and all the people that lived on that land before them, saying, "Oh, God gave them the land." Okay, fine. Let's say God gave you the land. Let's say God said, "Make Israel out of this land." It doesn't mean you have to kill people. Like I don't. I want the Israelis and the Jewish people and the Arab Palestinians and everybody else to live and coexist happily and peacefully and safely on that land. But that can't happen because the Zionist movement, they're too busy harming people, killing people. Some people, including these American liberal networks like CNN, they believe in that. They think that's okay. I don't think that's okay. They went and talked about that man when he died, Perez. This was like a few years ago now. He died and they called him a hero of peace when he signed that little what was it, some sort of treaty with then President Bill Clinton. Not when he died, but years before that, he signed something with Bill Clinton and what was it, Yasser Arafat, whatever his name was. All these different leaders signing a treaty said that there'd be no more war, no more battles. Turns out more people died, more Palestinians were killed by the Zionist regime, and it's still going to keep happening. But I digress. CNN, they'll push whatever agenda they want to push. They wanted to talk about how, I remember the 2016 elections. They wanted to talk about how, Hillary Clinton, she should have been the president. They weren't even subtle about it. Like 90% of CNN 2016, summer 2016, was about how glorious Hillary Clinton was and how she should be president and not Donald Trump. And people were just forgetting about the horrible foreign policy mistakes that she made, all the other stuff that she may have done. But they try to make Trump as if he's the only person with baggage and skeletons, even if she had skeletons. I don't like politicians in general. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Tory supporter. I'm not a Labour supporter. I am from Britain, by the way. I'm just somebody that's sick and tired of politicians and media outlets coming up with the same lies. Politicians lie. Journalists lie. Journalists are told by their bosses to spew out the same BS again and again and again and again. So now people don't respect mainstream media. People have to get their news from Facebook, from Twitter, from Instagram. People decide to do the research themselves and become the news because they're sick and tired of being lied to and being fed the same BS from mainstream media. Think about everything that's happened in the past 12 to 24 months. Do you really believe everything you've seen on the news is correct? 100% factual? You really think people aren't planning something? If you want to hear about something going on in places like Nigeria or like Sri Lanka or Ethiopia or Kenya, you can't rely on mainstream media because I'm living in London, the United Kingdom. If you want to hear about an Asian country, an African country, Latin American country, you gotta look at social media. You can't look at mainstream media. Because if you do, 99% of the time it's something negative. They'll talk about human trafficking, kidnapping, drugs, rape, torture. Not even sure if I can use some of the words that I just mentioned. Because again, if I were a bigger YouTuber and say some of this stuff, they'll demonetize me or remove the video, even though I'm saying it within the context of something else and not condoning those terrible things. They'll talk about negative things about African countries like bombs and explosions and poverty, when they found out that a lot of these African nations were faring much better when it came to more people surviving from the big illness that we're all dealing with these days in comparison to Western economies. BBC News Africa went and said, oh, it might be linked to poverty because African nations have on average younger populations and they've had to deal with third world conditions and all these other diseases. So somehow, there's less death because of the big illness surrounding the world these days. Also, Nigeria has to deal with the yellow fever, not just the big illness. So that's two big endemics slash pandemics. Two, in Nigeria, they're still faring better. We've lost 1,300 people because of the big illness, as opposed to the UK where, I've even lost count how many people have died here. It's like 1,000 people a day dying because of this big illness in the UK. The same illness that people have to deal with all over the world. But the mainstream media, they'll tell you that if an African nation is doing better than a Western nation, somehow it's still linked to us being inferior. Somehow it's still linked to us being poorer or being less educated. Everything you see, if you're living in a white majority Western country, about Africa or Asia or the Middle East or somewhere Hispanic, they're going to show you the poor places, the war-torn places. They're not going to show you the hundreds of beautiful places, cultural events, all the clever people, the scientists, the good people, the nice places to go and, relax on the beach somewhere. No, they'll just show you the corruption and the poverty and the terror. Because they want the mainstream media, especially if they're multinational news corporations, run by Americans or British people or Europeans, they want you to think that non-white, non-Western countries are somehow inferior. Why? Why would people want to see that day in, day out, day in, day out, day in, day out? And even when there are governments of countries that are plotting against the West, some of them, the mainstream media call out and say, look, these people don't want to be our friends, they want to be our enemies. But other governments of countries, hint, hint, that clearly do not have the interests of people living in the UK at heart. They clearly don't have the best interest of the Americans at heart. Those governments, the mainstream media are not going to necessarily, some liberal mainstream media outlets, they're not going to call out those governments because, they want they want the countries run by those governments to be, our best friends. I don't want to name names, but I think you can guess. It's like, okay, forget it. I'll mention some names. So let's say we're trained as British people or as American people, we're trained to hate the Russian government. We're trained to hate the North Korean government. We're trained to hate the Iranian government. We're trained to hate the Syrian government. But we're not trained to hate the Saudi Arabia regime or the Israeli Zionist regime. Only Fox are calling out the Chinese regime because of the illness. But unless you're watching something on social media, you're not going to have mainstream media. Up until recently, you're not, and even then it's sometimes, but it's not enough. You're not going to have enough coverage on what's happening in China with the Uyghur Muslims being in concentration camps. You'll see a little bit now, but not much. You won't see anybody except Fox talk about how China need to, be held accountable for the mess up that led to the big illness that affected the world last year and this year. You're not going to have mainstream media talk about how, Saudi Arabia, their regime has committed hundreds of human rights violations. Same with Israel's regime. Same with China's. Nothing to do with the big illness. Talking about they targeting ethnic minorities within their own countries, targeting women, targeting LGBTQ people, torturing them, killing them, imprisoning them wrongfully. They'll talk about that stuff happening in Russia. They'll talk about that stuff happening in Chechnya. They'll talk about that stuff happening in North Korea. People, living a horrible life in North Korea, whatever's happening in North Korea. But then, it's their own people that are being tortured and abused and stuff. But they're not going to talk about that stuff when it comes to the allies of the West. That's one of the many reasons why people are sick and tired of watching mainstream media, because there's an agenda there. They want to trick you into believing something that isn't true. Leftist media, right-wing media, no one is innocent. Everybody's complicit in some sort of agenda to lie to you about something. And technically, they have the right to do that because they're private organizations that can say what they want, and yet they ban Trump for saying how he feels. Just see the discrepancy there. Just see the difference. And I don't support Trump. I'm not in love with Trump. That's not what this is. This is just me calling it out for what it is. Anyway, it's getting late. I'm on a squeaky chair. It's getting late. I need to send my latest videos to you guys about the more complex topics, and I need to provide you with, good content every once in a while, just to keep everybody a little bit more sane during these tough times. Please like my stuff, comment, subscribe, share my videos to the people you like, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.